Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here. Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Sunday, a beautiful holiday weekend. I am very glad to be able to bring tonight's interview to all of you. What are we talking about here, guys? We got to get down to the bottom of this. What is this mystery going on? Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone accusing a fellow Scientologist of stealing $2.3 million from them over about a 3-year period through, I guess, unauthorized charges to credit cards. As an ex-Scientologist myself, this whole thing has been very suspicious and weird and fishy from the beginning. The Scientologist they are accusing of stealing this money was Elena Cardone's best friend, Bobbi Awad. And Bobbi got into Scientology about 10 years ago through Grant Cardone, through a Grant Cardone conference seminar where they were recruiting people into Scientology. Bobbi ended up actually living with Grant and Elena for quite some time. Not because she worked for them for any reason, but just because that's how close she and Elena were. Bobbi is a Scientologist who has been active, they say, online at the Celebrity Center in Los Angeles, the Scientology organization in Miami, the Scientology organization in Las Vegas, and also Scientology's cruise ship called the Free Winds. One of the reasons this thing has been so suspicious to me is that one of the number one rules in Scientology is that you are never allowed to report another Scientologist to the authorities for any reason whatsoever. This became publicly broadcast in a way it had quite never been publicly broadcast before in the recent trial of Scientologist Danny Masterson. And most of Danny Masterson's victims were Scientologists. And the fact that they were Scientologists and the fact that they were not allowed to report Danny Masterson to the police is a subject that came up during the trial. And any ex-Scientologist will tell you that you are not allowed to report Scientologists to the authorities. A current Scientologist will probably lie to you about it, but it's right there in their policies. It's right there in their books. It actually says it in the ethics book. It is a high crime to report another Scientologist to the civil authorities. And the civil authorities include the police. So Bobbi, although not currently active in Scientology, has never been expelled, has never been declared a potential trouble source, has never been declared a suppressive person. And yet for some reason, the Cardones are allowed to go after her legally. We've seen another example of this where a wealthy Scientologist, Trish Duggan, was able to send a fellow Scientologist to prison, again, for alleging theft. So if I were a Scientologist still, and I became aware that wealthier members like Trish Duggan and Grant Cardone are being allowed to pursue legal remedies that your average Scientologist were not allowed to pursue, I'd be furious. Do you know how many Scientologist business owners would love to sue each other? Because Scientologists tend to take advantage of each other in business and be dishonest with each other, partially because they know nobody can go to the authorities. You know, there's some sham internal procedures that you're allowed to use to sort of make things right, but you cannot sue each other. So if I was one of these Scientologist business owners who's told that I'd be expelled from Scientology if I ever involved the police or the authorities or the courts, and I saw Trish Duggan and Grant Cardone being allowed to do it, I would be livid. Okay, for some reason, we see Grant Cardone viciously going after Bobbi's husband, Joe Vargas. Joe's not a Scientologist. Joe's never been a Scientologist. Joe met Bobbi after she got into Scientology. Joe's never been involved in Scientology in any way, shape, or form. Joe is also not even suspected by the authorities of being involved in anything Bobbi's been accused of or having any knowledge of anything Bobbi's been accused of. Grant Cardone doesn't seem to believe that. Why does it matter what Grant Cardone believes if this is already in the hands of not only the police, but the prosecutors? You know, Bobbi's been charged by the state of Nevada. By the way, the Cardones aren't suing Bobbi. The Cardones aren't suing her husband, Joe. But for some reason, the Cardones are engaged in a vicious hate campaign against Joe. Grant Cardone's letting this play out mostly on Instagram right now, but he's even put up a whole website trying to get people to come forward with dirt about Joe Vargas. Grant, why are you harassing the husband of your Scientologist friend who you're accusing of a crime? It's very, very weird on a number of levels. So because Bobbi is currently engaged in actual being prosecuted, I have not spoken to Bobbi. Bobbi is smartly not wanting to do an interview. I had an extensive interview with her husband, Joe Vargas. That is what I'm going to share with you tonight. There's also another really strange thing that came up in the charging documents, is that for some reason, there's this other woman who's been brought into it with other accusations against Bobbi. And it is not clear to me what relationship the Cardones have with this woman. And this woman has not been specifically named in the charging documents, but I'm going to tell you who she is because she's not a Jane Doe or anything like that. And this is a woman who's claiming to have, I guess, loaned Bobbi. Somehow she's saying Bobbi gave her $100,000 of fake money. I don't claim to know all the details or understand it at all, but I am curious to know if anyone of you guys out there in the Cardone world, in the Scientology world, or even in the regular world, if you happen to know what the relationship is between Tara Randall and the Cardones, please contact me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com, because it's not clear to me how the detectives investigating a financial fraud case between the Cardones and Bobbi Awad ended up coming across Tara Randall. So let me see. Here's who I'm talking about here. So Tara Randall, I've got this video muted. Tara Randall is the woman on the right. And she is the one joining in with, some criminal complaints against Bobbi, even though I'm not aware that Bobbi's actually being charged for anything, but I'm not totally sure. Again, it's the woman on the right. Let's see here. Yeah, she's on the right. Now, here's the thing. I think the reason why she's not being named is that, this is a purely hypothetical guess on my part, that the Cardones don't want people to know who she is because they don't want people to know what their connection to her is. Okay, why wouldn't they want anyone to know what their connection to her is? Well, I do have it on pretty good authority that Tara Randall is a graduate of the Velvet Jones School of Technology. Okay, now if you are not yet familiar with the Velvet Jones School of Technology, it is a prestigious online university founded in the 1980s by Velvet Jones. And if you haven't seen any of their infomercials from that time period, I'm going to share with you just a brief clip of it right now so you understand what we're talking about. Here we go.
Just think, $1,500 a week without even leaving the comforts of your own bedroom. Sound too good to be true? Just sit for my new book entitled, I Want to Be a Hoe. And then in 6 short weeks, you're not confident that you can make big money as a hoe working for me. Just send the book back for a refund. It's as simple as that.
Tara Randall was one of the successful graduates of the Velvet Jones School of Technology and is a high-paying hoe out of Miami and Las Vegas. And I just really want to find out what the connection is between Grant Cardone, Elena Cardone, and Tara Randall, the high-paying hoe. Not that there's anything wrong with that, okay? Sex work is real work, and that's okay. But I'm just saying it might be one of the reasons the Cardones are wanting to keep this on the down low. All right, guys. So I'm now going to share with you my interview with Joe Vargas. I'm going to play this full screen. Oh, hold on. I'm going to play this full screen. I'm going to take myself off the screen. I'm going to play this in full. I'm going to be with you guys in the live chat. And then I'll take up the questions and the comments after the interview is over. Here we go, guys. Hope you enjoy. All right. Well, thanks for chatting with me, Joe. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
So I got to say, I was surprised to see, well, there was some media this week about your wife, Bobbi, getting arrested. The Cardones are accusing her of spending money on their credit cards without permission over a 3-year period, like $2 million. you have to wonder how someone missed $2.3 million of credit card charges over 3 years. But I was surprised to see Cardone and you publicly sparring on Instagram.
Mhm.
Could not wrap my mind around why Cardone would be dragging you into whatever's going on. So my understanding is, well, let me just ask you, what was your wife's relationship with Elena Cardone?
That was her best friend, and I've mentioned this in podcasts before that Grant used to make comments like, "Well, that's Elena's only friend." So when I met my wife, and I actually met her online, and I want to say around December 2019, and that was like a lot of this content that they're using, like trying to frame it as if it's fairly new, like in the Rolls Royce, on the Rolls Royce, all her purses and luxury stuff. That actually, like, they're using old content, 5+ years old, and framing it now to make his audience make it seem as if like, well, look at like, this is what they bought with my money allegedly, right? When it's not true and it's old content and they're just tying it in. And I think the reason why they're um, dragging me into it publicly is because he doesn't want to believe that I didn't know what was going on.
Hmm.
And it sensationalizes the story as well.
So
If
when
you're
you say,
if you're just gonna drag and make allegations to someone like Bobbi, because Bobbi is actually very well liked by a lot of fucking people,
Hmm.
right? She has a great reputation amongst a lot of high-end entrepreneurs, business owners, people that know Grant. And she is the primary caretaker of my son, my 4-year-old. I mean, in my opinion, this doesn't look good on his part. That he spends fucking days on dragging her and without letting the courts do their thing, right? So
Yeah.
what's going to sensationalize it, and who's more well known between my wife? I am, and my older image, what got me more popular during the heydays of my CBD era, because I started my CBD company in 2015. That was the content that I used to be that it was marketing content, right? And so now,
What content? What content are you talking about?
like blowing up stuff, money and money counters, me in my pajamas, 8 in the morning in front of my house, taking content videos with like my Rolls Royce that I had, the beginning of my marriage, my mansion that I had, at the time when I met my wife, because she was living with the Cardones. Let me take you back. So
Yeah.
people understand.
So
Like,
your wife Bobbi was living with the Cardones?
yeah, she was living with them and traveling with them.
Mm.
So in 2019 December, there's a famous rapper, a super nice guy actually. His name is T Grizzly, and me and him were talking in DMs, and I wanted to do some type of deal with him for CBD. And so he acknowledged and was like, "Yeah, I'm down. Let's meet up." So I flew to LA, had dinner, but when I was waiting for him at the bar, my old assistant was a fan of like the arena of 10X, right?
A fan of what?
Of 10X, the system that they have, like the knowledge and the education. And my assistant was a fan of that.
Okay.
And so he was very familiar with like Bobbi, Elena, Grant, and everything else. So apparently my wife was at dinner with her friend at the same restaurant. And he recognized her, but he didn't want to interrupt her. And he told me, I was like, "Oh, she's kind of cute." And whatever it is that I said, not to imply that she was kind of cute, but you know what I mean. And so T shows up with his entourage. We have dinner. She leaves by the time that we're done. So I DM'd her on Instagram and said, "Hey, I saw you at dinner last night. Like, I couldn't talk to you. I apologize." And whatever it is else that I said, it was like more of like a hello, like introduction, right? And so February, we stayed in contact. February of 2020, there was a conference that, I don't want to promote the name of his conference, but there was a conference that Grant was throwing in Las Vegas. And so she was like, "I'm going to be in Vegas in February. Let's meet up for drinks." So we met up. And then the C word, the mask thing, I don't want to say it I don't know if you get banned on that.
COVID. No, you can say COVID.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure.
I was like, the C word?
Yeah.
Are we talking about Elena?
And I'll land the plane. So fast forward, the conference leaves, we stay in touch. Meanwhile, Elena's like trying really hard to like get her to meet other guys live on videos on the story, so I would see it, and introducing her in public to guys, and she's like downplaying me and telling Bobbi that I'm not whatever she was bad saying to Bobbi. She didn't want me with her, and there's more to that story as to like I originally said on a podcast a couple years ago that Elena stopped being friends with her because of my image. But I had to kind of like stretch the truth a little bit because I wasn't, now it's playing out and that might be uncovered in the process that she's going through. Because mind you, I'm not involved or I'm not a defendant in the case. I'm not involved in anything. Going back to the meeting of, so COVID happens and she was living and traveling with the Cardones, but they were living in Miami at the time because of COVID. So she flies out to Vegas and then she never left. And then they maintain a relationship by phone. All I know is really like Grant would reach out more. So Bobbi was really close to their two daughters.
Can I jump in quick with a question though?
Yeah, go
ahead. When you say she was living with them in Miami, does that mean she was working for them?
No, she was like literally this. It's like being the best friend, and then because they're around and traveling together, it's like, what can I do to help you? You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
like a friend help, right? Like, let's go shopping. Let me go help you pick out that dress. And hey, what do you need help with? Like during the conference, I'm happy to help. Right.
Okay. So just to make sure that I'm clear though, it's not, she wasn't employed as her assistant.
No.
She wasn't like her personal shopper.
No.
She wasn't her business manager or
any. It was her bestie.
Just her best friend. I got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I interrupted you. Keep going, please.
No, it's good. And so a lot of these things that they're posting now, excuse me, is old content. And it's all when I first met my wife or before. Now they're framing it as if like that content is, look at all the luxury purses and look at all this luxury, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, that was Elena's best friend and she's a Beverly Hills girl. She had all this shit. Her closet was insane, bro.
I have to jump in though, because I'm sure the viewers aren't going to truly get it yet. So like Cardone has over the last few days been posting photos to Instagram that you in the past have posted, like you and your wife in a Rolls Royce in your pajamas with like 30, expensive purses. And Cardone's creating the impression of, look at all the purses they bought with our money. But you're saying those photos were from like before what? Before any of these allegations.
Oh yeah, that and she had a fucking wild closet. We had to like make a custom closet for her because of all her luxury items that she moved to Las Vegas with. She was without going into detail about her past of jobs, but she was worked at Versace, worked at Chanel, worked at all these like luxury brand houses, and was a manager, was a salesperson. Like this is who Bobbi was. Like she is a luxury person, and then her and Elena is like the same type, and they're have a lot of common with that. And she literally moved to Vegas with this fucking crazy closet that we had to like literally build a custom fucking closet for her because of all this stuff. So
I think something clicked that I didn't quite realize before is I think what I have not been truly understanding is what the precise time frame is that the Cardones are alleging these crimes started and when they stopped. And I think what you're saying is
they alleged 3 years ago.
And you're saying that was well after she even moved to Vegas with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 2025. They're alleging that she used her car. She used their cars for 3 years, so that'd be 2022.
Yeah.
She officially moved in with me in 2020, like in April 2020 or somewhere around there, and then we ended up. She never left. She had a place in Beverly Hills, and then she also lived with the Cardones as well.
Yeah. So when I started reading everything that was being reported, I 100% automatically assumed that Bobbi was not a Scientologist because Scientologists are not allowed to report each other to the authorities. So in my mind, the only way the Cardones could have ever reported Bobbi to the authorities is if she wasn't a Scientologist. Now, her name did appear one time on a Scientology service completions list for an introductory course. Is or was your wife Bobbi a Scientologist?
She was when I met her.
And just for the record again, you met her in December of 20.
I met her online December 2019, met her in person February 2020, and then she moved in with me in Vegas on April 2020.
Interesting. Because I think the one entry I found for her on a Scientology service completion list was 2015.
Yeah.
Does that sound like that could be right? Do you know when she met Elena?
I don't. What I do know, and I don't know, the only thing that ties into maybe that is correct. Let's just say that Bobbi, I don't know how much exactly. I'm being told $100,000 was given to Grant and Elena 10 years ago to invest in whatever it is they're doing for real estate. And to this day, to this month, her monthly deposit came in, but she makes $50 a month off $100,000.
That's a very impressive return from Cardone Capital there.
Yeah, it doesn't match with what's said. That's all I can say. And I don't know the exact details. I'm not talking to my wife much about things. We're actually I'm not going to mention what it's like right now, but yeah, there's not much we're talking about. And more or less, like, I don't have a lawyer. I don't need one. So I'm not involved in this, but you know, her lawyer is just like, focus on your kid, create a positive, environment for him, and try not to discuss anything at home just because it might spark. He's just being more sensitive about like the environment. So she's kind of like just doing her thing, and I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with, and I still have to run my business and businesses, and I'm launching a new one. So I need to stay focused. And so we're not that in talks as people would think.
Okay. So I don't know how much information you have about this, but usually, well, like I said, usually Scientologists are not allowed to involve the authorities in any way, shape, or form, no matter what the legal issue is. Yeah. And I guess one question that comes to mind is whether the Cardones reported this to the police or whether they might have just reported these transactions to their credit cards and maybe the credit cards reported it to the police. Do you happen to know which one it was?
I don't.
Okay.
I do know that it is alleged that he filed a claim with American Express to get his money back.
Interesting. Have you spoken to Grant?
I have, yeah. He called me. Grant has an interesting timing of reaching out, and it's part of his manipulation and mind games. So I haven't said this publicly yet, but over a year ago, our house was raided by SWAT over all this. That day, Bobbi didn't get arrested. They let us go to the park with Elon. They let us have lunch and, leave. They let us do our thing. They're like, come back in a certain amount of time. Here's a number you can text, and we'll let you know when we're done doing what we need to do here.
What were they looking for?
They were
products that matched the purchases and the credit cards.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I see.
I think so. And they were super cool. And, I think that I'm not used to that. And I've never been rated like that before. So it was an interesting experience, and just kind of take it day by day. And then that was over a year ago. And we waited, this long for the charges to come out. But the reason why I brought that up was because the day that happened, Grant magically messages me, and he was like talking about me acquiring his daughter's username on Instagram for him. And I'll tell you why, because I used to have the ability to have it was kind of like a side hustle type thing where there were certain panels, like if a username on it's a side hustle. If a username on Instagram is dormant for 1 to 2 years, then people within Instagram allow you to claim usernames if you have like a media panel. And so that name, excuse me 1 second. Sorry. That name was dormant and he wanted it. And I reached out to him much prior to him hitting me up, days, maybe months, and he didn't respond. And he chose, because I let him know, like, hey, if you want your daughter's username, let me know, because I was going to facilitate that for him. And this is, I think, maybe months before he hit me up and all this stuff happened. And he DM'd me that day because he knew what was happening. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, can you still get my daughter's username? Like playing, and it hits me up on X, which he's never done before, trying to get my attention and mention that. And then
the day your house was raided, he messaged you about getting the Instagram username for his daughter.
Yeah, it's a game to him. It's all a mind game, right? And so you asked me if I talked to him. And so the reason why I brought that up is because the timing of when he contacts you, it's all mind games, right? The day the charges came out, which was like a week or two ago on Bobbi, the allegations are not facts, which they're trying to present that as to be, so they can try to ruin her reputation and mine, because he doesn't believe that I knew anything. And I'll say something to that as well when I finish this point.
You mean he doesn't believe that you didn't know anything?
Yeah, I don't know sorry if I didn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the day the charges came out, he hit me up and he wanted to get me on the phone. And I asked Bobbi's lawyer, I said, is this okay? Because I don't want to jeopardize anything that's going on. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. See what he wants. So long story short, I get him on the phone. He's playing stupid on the phone. He's like beating around the bush to the point. And I said, I don't know what it is that you want, bro. What do you want? Like, what's up? And he was like, oh, now you're just gonna pretend like, nothing's happening. I said, just say what it is that you want to talk to me about. So we get to the point of that. And then he was like, why don't you just call me and make it right? And I said, Grant, I was like, unfortunately for you, man, I can't. It's with the state. And one, I heard, that you're filing a claim, so you're trying to get your money back from Amex. Two, in my mind, you're wanting me to admit to, an admission of guilt by saying, yeah, I'll pay. That's implying to me that if I don't believe she did anything wrong, why would I pay you? But even if I wanted to pay, man, I can't. Like, it's with the state. Grant doesn't have a lawyer for this. It's with the state of Nevada versus Bobbi.
Right.
So even if he wanted, I said, let me ask you a question. Even if I wanted to pay you, do you realize, like, even if I paid you, that you're just going to get maybe double the money, or you can cancel the claim, or whatever the case may be? What do you think's going to happen then? And he was like, well, everything's reversible. I said, no, it's not, dude. You don't get to make that call. It's with the state. But he's going online and trying to frame it as if like that wasn't part of any conversation, that I gave them a chance to, and what type of man won't pay for his wife, to stay out of prison, and blah, blah, blah. Bro,
well, that's what I didn't understand, because on Instagram, Grant is basically making posts saying, I gave you, Joe, a chance to make it right. And you go, what are you talking about? This is
that's it.
A prosecution between the state and Bobbi. It has nothing
he won't
to
tell
do.
He won't tell his followers that.
Right.
He wants to frame this. Everything's about manipulation and mind games. It's about trying to ruin her reputation and mine, and to get what's that saying? The public. It's like you have a court decision and you have your public decision.
The court of public opinion.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what he's focused on. So they're framing it. Him and others are trying to frame it as if, like, let's use old content. Like, that's not even my life anymore. Do people? I think a lot of people do, but people that have been following me for many years have seen my content.
You think a lot of people do what?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. that framing of using old content to make it seem as if like this is who he is, and look at these items in this car, and his wife's been paying his lifestyle, and he's not really a hustler, and this and that, framing it to be like that I'm not this quote unquote hustler. Like, it's a fucking username on Instagram. Like, he's so hung up on that, dude. But but basically just framing everything, and framing, you know, the reasoning or the story and he won't mention what you just said. Well, I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, because he won't mention that. He doesn't want people to know that because it makes him look bad, and it doesn't support his agenda and his fake story that he's putting out.
Yeah. You know, it just seems to me that if the prosecutor had a solid case against Bobbi, and if Grant believed that to be true, why would he be calling you a year after your home was raided, a week or so after Bobbi was charged, to talk to you about paying him the money back? It seems to me, my guess would be, he was calling on a recorded line to try to gather evidence that they could use in the prosecution, which, I may be wrong, tends to indicate to me that it's not an airtight case already.
Well, also what he was trying to do is he was trying to get me to admit that I knew something.
Right.
Because he was saying, he goes, so you mean to tell me that you live in that house with your wife and you didn't know if anything was going on? He goes, you think the public's gonna really believe that? And that's when I was like, I don't care what the public thinks. But he was like, truly, I think that's what his point was. He was trying to get me to admit that I knew something when I like genuinely, you know. And then they try to frame, I genuinely didn't know. But they're trying to frame it to where it's like, he goes, do you have another wife? Like, are you married to someone else? But I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, people don't know what our relationship is like. It's very, our son is easy, but when it's not easy, it's very hard, right? Because of his autism, and when he has meltdowns and he regulates and doesn't know if he gets upset about something, like, you know, he does this and he has these meltdowns, and people with have autistic kids may relate to that. They don't know how to regulate themselves and regulate their feelings. So they hit themselves, like, you know, hitting themselves like this or by the head, you know, and so it gets like that a lot. And Bobbi is pretty much the primary care of him, because he doesn't want anybody else to take care of him, especially in those moments. And if she's not around, he's upset, you know, and starts to have meltdowns, and he's looking for her, and that's our life, right? And the past year, I've been in very build mode. I created tech, and that was like very intense for me to always be online, and for 9 months. And then when you're in build mode of building new businesses, not maintaining them, you're building them, it takes a lot of my time. And then as soon as that was done, I was like, you know what, I have a CBD business. I want to get on the legal cannabis side of things. So I'm building a brand for that. And so I've just been in constant build mode, like literally 15 hours a day, every day. I take breaks for my son and my other family. And like some days I'll, you know, drive and to take them to the park and stuff. Like those are my breaks throughout my days. But it's been very invigorating, you know, the past year for me, because of my time and building new businesses. So me and Bobbi don't have that relationship that people think, and we're just kind of co-parenting right now. And she's very like, not, Bobbi is a very strategic person when it comes to like, I don't want to share a lot of negative feelings, a lot of things that are going on in my life that I don't want to burden you. That's how she thinks about me. That's how she thinks about others. Because people were like, how come you didn't tell us you're going through this? Because she's been dealing with this for the past year. And her answer is like, I didn't want to burden people with like, everybody else has their own problems. My husband is busy. He's stressed out all the time because it's stressful, especially in tech. Tech sucks. I don't know. Like now that I've done that, I'm like, I know I don't want to ever do that again. But that's how she thinks. So she creates separation of us and lets me do my thing. And she's very supportive in that part. But we don't have like night talks. We don't like, I don't want to get into like this, like, personal in-home what it's really like, but it's safe to say like it's not, and that's just, every relationship is different. You know, some people might pillow talk at night. My wife hasn't slept in my bed in over a year, bro. And the reason why is because my son doesn't allow her. So she sleeps in the bed with my son in his room because he doesn't want it any other way. And that's difficult for her because of how he sleeps. And, you know, not to keep talking about the autistic life and raising an autistic kid, but yeah, it's not, I don't know what people are thinking. I think people think that because what they think that a perfect relationship should be and how they live their life, most wives, to me, in my perception of reality, is most wives wouldn't be like Bobbi. Most of my relationships weren't like Bobbi.
Right.
Like, very supportive. We'll talk, not to say we haven't talked, obviously, in a year, but like very limited conversations. She doesn't want to burden me with any of her feelings because of what she's going through, or, you know, sometimes I can see it and I'm like, come here and give me a hug. You know, everything's going to be okay. And that's it. Right. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, that sounds like, I mean, that sounds like it's rough for the both of you. You know, you mentioned that
I just stay busy, man. I mean,
yeah.
as long as you stay busy, like, you know, you don't think about it, and it helps for sure.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, when you mentioned that Bobbi was best friends with Elena, the
Mhm.
idea of Grant picking up the phone to try to be like, "Hey, man, why didn't you just call me and make it right?" Suggests somewhat of a familiarity between the two of you. Were you and Grant friends?
No, I think that, and I'm using a Scientology term. I'm not a Scientologist, by the way, and I don't mind them for the record. But no, I don't. I think that maybe the reason why I said that is because I was going to use the word affinity. Um, listen, I think that maybe have some type of affinity with me because of like my style, and he's loud, right? I'm assuming, but
Well, I
yeah.
mean, Grant himself is a guy who takes pictures sitting on top of Rolls Royces, so I don't know what his beef is with you.
You know what though, man? Like, not to take it off just for a split second, because Scientology to me is interesting, and I'm not a fan of it, but I don't, you know, I don't. This isn't about science. Like, I understand Grant's role in the Scientology church. He's very high up there. He's one of the biggest financial donors. I understand that, right? You mentioned that when we're on the phone. It's not. I don't. They're dragging me into this with sensationalism and clicks because no one would care if he was just attacking Bobbi. It would go away in a few days, and he knows that. Um, but it's funny because I use the word affinity, and affinity can be used by anybody, even though it's like kind of a term that came from Scientology. But there's a lot of fucking, on a lower level, bro. There's a lot of fucking data in Scientology that's like NLP. That's fucking really good. Like, it's really good. No, I'm
So,
serious.
I mean, I know what you're talking about, but how
Yeah.
do you know what's on the lower levels of Scientology?
What do you mean? Because Bobbi was. What do you mean? Because I asked questions like 03, 03 and stuff like that.
Oh,
But then,
three.
or not 03. What is it like? There's a certain, I don't know. What's the third level of Scientology?
OT3?
OT3.
But your wife didn't do OT3, did she?
I don't know. I don't know what her level she was. She
That's
was. She
pretty
was.
high. That'd be pretty high up.
Okay. She was low level.
Okay.
But see, the thing is, though, is your audience. I'm preaching to the choir right now, but lower level, because, dude, I'm married to someone that I of course I did my research. I went down the rabbit hole. I started psychoanalyzing fucking everything. And why would this person say that? What's their motive? Okay, they're probably telling the truth. And then 50 other people, like, okay, they all saying the same thing. Like, I'm putting this lines and together, and I'm reading comments, and I've done my research, right, as much as I can. I've learned about Xenu and all this weird other shit that goes on in there. Not to be.
You learned what was on OT3. To be clear, I was in Scientology for 30 years and I never got above the lower levels of Scientology because the levels of the bridge that you get to is different than what you did working for the organization. These are two completely different things. But what I'm sorry, what was that? I mean, I cut you off, but I think I was also in the middle of a thought. But because you mentioned affinity. Oh, I said, were you and Grant friends?
Yeah, no, we were not friends. We just had, like I said, like a social affinity, and that was it. And we didn't talk. You know, if I want to talk, like, hit him up. You know, hey, I can get your daughter's username if you want it. because and make some money, and it's just what I was doing. That's it.
I actually truly can't wrap my mind around Grant calling you. If Bobbi was Elena's best friend, if they've sort of not really been in each other's lives for, I have to assume, at least a year now, if you were never a friend of Grant,
no,
I just can't wrap my mind around him calling you on the phone at this stage of the game, trying to get you to admit that you knew something and trying to be like, why didn't you just call me and make this right and pay it back? Like, I don't get it. What do you make of it?
and I think the phone call was just, he was trying to get like some type of admission of guilt on my end, because he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to believe, and he doesn't want others to believe that I literally I didn't know. And then that's when they go into the framing of, his wife owned Bodella. That's awesome, but how much money was she really making? Well, my wife wasn't only doing Bodella, bro. And I'll leave all that out of this conversation. Like, she did coach. I mean, I can say she did coaching stuff, and she did other things. It wasn't just Bodella. And so I don't know. She's always on the phone. Like, when my son's in therapy every day, right? 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Her 6 hours that time, she's hardly ever even here. She's out doing what she needs to do, and doing what she does for Bodella, and then coaching calls and whatever. I don't know, whatever. And as long as, listen, at the end of the day, as long as she's helping me maintain the house and helping me with my son, which is more important than anything else, then do what you need to do. I don't get involved.
I totally get it. Again, I know this sounds really naive, but if Bobbi is the one who lived with them, if Bobbi is the one they're saying used the credit cards, if Bobbi is the one who's already been charged, she's facing like 17, 18, 19 felonies.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't a friend of Grant's, what in the hell does it matter to Grant Cardone if you knew, in Grant's mind, if he thinks you might have known what they're alleging Bobbi did? What does it have to do with anything as far as Grant is concerned?
Because he wants to drag me into it.
Right. So you guys don't have a history?
No.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so let me ask you this. Some of the stuff that you posted to Instagram, I'm looking at one of your stories that you posted. Well, I assume this was to Grant, but as I'm reading it, it just says hustler tip. What not to do as a man. Number one, you said don't rely on cosmetic surgery. Confidence should come from within. This is the most beta thing that you can do as a man. Number two, you said if serious issues arise in your relationship, like your wife allegedly cheats on you with her personal trainer, address them with action, not silence. Okay, so where did the info come from that Elena Cardone cheated on Grant with her personal trainer?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I mean, I always, dude. My content is always about helping people out and bringing value to people's lives, and it's a hustler tip. And if the shoe fits, I guess wear it. But I didn't say any names. I don't know if Grant is dealing with that or dealt with that, then he's not the only person in this entire world that the wife cheated on him with a personal trainer. So it's just general statements. It's just a general, like, trying to help people.
Okay, good. Okay, tip number three. Tip number three, don't spend your time yapping endlessly online without substance that can be easily disproven and hasn't already been openly discussed publicly. Tip number four, stand tall in your character, even if you can't in height. Tip number five, don't lead with insecurity and ego. Real strength is quiet and stable. Tip number six, never drag others into matters they're not involved in, especially when your own life isn't in order. Insert glasshouse quote and pot calling the kettle black. Tip number seven, watch who you pick fights with. Some people are built to outlast you, and they'll make sure you feel it every step of the way until your last breath. It's funny, I didn't realize that you didn't address this to Grant Cardone until I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's not for Grant. It's just a general statement, what I feel like don't do as a man.
Yes. It would make a lot of sense, though. I can finally understand why Grant really leaned really hard into the testosterone and the HGH and the fitness, because, after the personal trainer, woke up and took his bike for a ride around the block. He then took Grant's wife for a ride as well. I can understand if that would inflame his Napoleon complex little man syndrome And you know, it just puts some things into perspective for me. Not that was about Grant or anything.
Doesn't say nothing about Grant.
Okay. Is Elena Cardone the one that got Bobbi into Scientology?
I'll answer that in a second, but where is Javier, Elena's trainer? Whatever happened to him? Whatever happened to Javier? I'm looking at the camera right now for you watching. Anybody know where Javier's at?
Hey, Javier, if you want to do an interview with me on my channel, Javier, reach out to me.
Rumor has it. I don't know. He got married. Somebody allegedly paid for a wife so he didn't get deported. I don't know.
I mean, look, if I were Grant Cardone, a certified senior citizen, and my young hot wife was getting piped by the personal trainer, it might get under my skin a little bit. I mean, from what I understand, Elena and Cardone and Grant were living separately for a while. Elena was living in the condo, Grant was living in the house, something like that, allegedly.
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, that was a message sent. I don't know if you're referring to the message I posted.
There's so much stuff that was posted. I'm like frantically going through my screenshots, and I might have to like insert some things.
Someone sent a text to somebody.
Oh yes.
And then it says, now it makes sense why Elena was living in the condo and Grant was living at the house, and she wouldn't really explain why, and she'd always have excuses.
Yes.
Now it makes sense. I don't know what makes sense. I mean, I'm just people internally behind that were involved in the background. You know, they chatter and I guess, but you know, I can't say for certain if that actually happened. So
if anyone out there in the Cardone universe has information they want to share with me about Javier, the personal trainer, laying pipe on Elena Cardone, please feel free to reach out to me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Grant, I mean, Grant does say if your wife cheats on you, it's your fault. So I guess
did. I've seen his video. He said, if your wife cheats on you, it's your fault. And he also said he never signed a prenup.
Yeah. I think it might be the first time Grant Cardone has ever taken accountability for anything. And it's think about it. I was like, wow, it's fucking refreshing, dude. Like you're actually taking accountability that it's your fault. Let me ask you, is that a Scientology thing?
Scientology would say that Scientology would say that everything that happens to you is your fault. Yes.
There's no real man thinks like that.
I know.
No, it's crazy. That's like diabolical fucking and the fact that people are like, you're so amazing, Grant, but like, bro, like he uncovered who he really is. Like it's crazy.
Is that around the time that he actually said that in a video?
I'm not saying nothing.
Oh my God. Well, I'll tell you what, since you asked me the question, is that a Scientology thing? Elena cheating on Grant is something that definitely would have been taken up by the ethics officer between Elena and Grant. And the Scientology, we'll just say practices or exercises that Grant would have been required to go through literally would have been designed for him to recognize what responsibility he had and what he did to pull this in. What is it that he can be responsible for? Why this happened to him? Now,
that's if it did happen.
If it did happen, yeah. And to be fair, Elena would be going through the same exercises of how basically no matter what happens in Scientology, the person who did it has to realize why it was their fault, and the person it was done to has to also realize why it was their fault. That's the only thing that's considered like spiritually healthy. Got it.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, only God knows, I guess, and Grant Cardone and his wife.
And Javier.
Yeah, where's Javier?
Hashtag where is Javier?
Who allegedly bought Javier a fucking literally bought a wife so he wouldn't get deported? Who would care enough to do that so he wouldn't get deported? I wonder.
Wow.
If that's true, I don't know.
Yeah. So is Elena the one that got Bobbi into Scientology?
I don't know.
How can you and Bobbi not have ever spoken about this?
Actually, no. Hold on. I don't know for sure, but I do want to say I think, bro. I don't know. Do people not realize like there's so many things and so many people and so much fucking in my life for the past 10 years. Like, I don't remember people like, you're like, how do you not remember? I'm like, bro, like, I don't remember yesterday sometimes.
Do you know what I find interesting? I find it interesting that Bobbi didn't try to get you into Scientology, or in the beginning, did she?
Yeah, let me answer the other question first.
Okay.
I want to say that Bobbi was originally like a fan of the 10X ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I believe she would go to the conferences at the very beginning, and then I don't know the transition, how they became friends. But I don't know. It's not a question I care to know. Like, who got you into Scientology? Like, why would I ask my wife that? Right? I just know that she's been around that, and Grant and Elena wouldn't let her around if allegedly. I mean, you can confirm that. I would imagine that this is an assumption that they don't allow non-Scientologists around. So maybe they did get her. But no, I never asked her who got you involved. Like, that's just a weird question.
It's not that weird of a question.
Who got you involved in Scientology? Like, that's like saying I went to church and no one's ever. I'm more spiritual now than I am religious, but no one's ever in my life asked me, when you went to church, 15 years ago, who got you into church? Like, no one's ever asked that.
Well, I mean, that's true. That's true. I think the question would probably be more like, how did you, how were you introduced to the Lord, or how did you get into Scientology? But that's, I mean, I'm just, it's okay. I'm just that,
Yeah, no, I never asked that question. But did she ever try to get me involved? She never. So she tried to introduce me to it, because she, at the time, the beginning of our relationship, she was very much like, I don't know if you call it a fan of the church, or very much into the ideology of like the data that comes in this the problem dude, problem solving. I'm not promoting for Scientology right now, dude, but the problem solving and the solution base of the books of every problem that happened, to me, is unbelievable. Like, the data is great. Right?
That's how people get sucked in. It's a very self-helpy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty effective self-help stuff at the very lower levels. That's how people get sucked into Scientology. If it wasn't appealing or enticing at the lower levels, nobody would ever get involved.
True. So things would happen, and then she would tell me about like, because I would say, what would you do in this situation? And her knowledge is based off of what she's learning through the subject of what this scenario, and how to get through that scenario and stuff like that. And so I was like intrigued at first. I was like, that's fucking. At first I was like, this fucking, with everything, I'm always like, get away from me. I don't want to learn nothing new. I'm set in my ways. But like, over time, I was like, this shit's fucking, like, sounds actually pretty good. Or that actually worked. I tried that. And so she wouldn't say, I need you in Scientology if we're going to be together. She's never said that. She was never forceful, ever. And she would just basically say, this guy Steve that relentlessly texts her, that program where you're always getting texts and making them feel like, stay in contact so we can get that $50 for that book.
Is Steve, do you happen to know, is Steve from the Las Vegas org, or the Miami org, or the Celebrity Center?
Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. So
that means your wife didn't only do Scientology in Miami, she also did it in Vegas after she moved there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
when you say
did it though, we never went to church. It was just like,
there's no such thing as going to church in Scientology.
Okay,
yeah. But you did say that you guys have like a massive Scientology library in your place, right?
Well, our library is like 30 by 30 foot, but it's not full. But there are like I don't even know what's inside of them. There are books, but there's a lot of stuff that are like books that they still have the plastic on it that never even got opened, because she doesn't practice it anymore.
I'm trying to find a Scientology lecture set that I can pull up on the camera and see if it looks like these. Hold on.
If you ever, go ahead. If you ever
Give me one
study,
sec.
if you, yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah. What is that called?
Oh, I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of these. This particular one is called Scientology Milestone 1, but they all look like this. They're all they call them the clamshells. They're all like this.
A lot of them are still on their plastic wrap. But
all Scientologist libraries are pretty much still in their plastic wrap. Nobody actually uses them.
You need another one.
You need another one. That's right.
But I haven't finished the first 15. Like, and so to end that story, there was something that I was going through personally. It had to do with my business, because at some point in my business I had 73 employees, and my mom was helping me run I had like 5 dispensaries. I was opening up 2 more. This is all pre-pandemic, and all my managers were women. For all my stores, I also have a manufacturing facility here in Vegas, so I make all my products and do that whole manufacturing thing as well. So I'm a manufacturer and retailer. And fucking life was tough, dude. My ex-girlfriend was part of my business. My family didn't like her, so creating tension. It was like constant. It was a war zone in my business. And this is before I met Bobbi. And what was the reason that we brought this up? I just have like a brain fart right now.
Oh, I think we were just talking about the Scientology library in your house and the lectures, but you need another one. You haven't finished the first one.
The reason why is because the chaos of I'm reliving the chaos in my head, and you're giving me PTSD right now, but I'll stay strong for the interview. Yeah, it was chaos. It was chaos, and I was going through a very hard time. Oh wait, no. What? I'm confusing the timestamps because I'm talking about my ex-girlfriend, but my ex-girlfriend was no longer part of it. It was like a link. Okay, so that's what it was. It was like a lingering effect after my ex left my business, and then other issues arise in the business, but like that we're just lingering there, and so it carried into when Bobbi came into my life, right? And then COVID happened, and then without going into the story, but the state of Nevada deemed all my CBD shops, dispensaries, whatever you want to call them, as non-essential, but they kept the marijuana shops open. And so they shut us down for 9 months because we were deemed as non-essential, and that hurt business. And so so once my ex left the business, time would go on, but like things, when you're having 73 employees and you're like utter chaos, things start to go away, but then there's still things that are lingering. And as you're like downsizing because the pandemic fucked you over, and you're trying to like pivot and maneuver, and you're dealing with all these people, and I was very like, I don't want to let anybody go, so I kept the stores open for the 9 months and paid for whatever I needed to pay for, and I just bled money because I was like, I don't want these people to not, especially now, I was empathetic to them, and so that bled into our relationship for me and Bobbi. And then I remember going through like some moment because something happened between me, my mom, and my daughter, because my daughter was managing my warehouse at the time. And Steve comes over with these fucking like tin, I want to say, and I don't know how to explain it, but like
the cans for the e-meter.
I was gonna say the tin cans that look like, you know, the old days. I don't know, the fucking the talkies or
it doesn't go in. It doesn't go in your mouth, Joe.
No, no, but it looks like those. It's like the wire. You know
the cans on the wire.
Yeah.
Jeez, you're going like this. It's like
no, because the fucking cans that you talk into, bro. God.
I know what you're talking about now.
That's what they look like.
that is what they look like. Yeah.
Get the dick out of your mouth, man. No.
That is what they look like. So wait, Steve. So this guy from the Las Vegas org came over to your house with a freaking e-meter.
Yeah.
To help you sort out your problems with your business.
Yeah, but during like as we're doing it, I made him stop.
Mm,
I don't like this.
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, that's kind of
And
gutsy.
he was respectful too. He was like, I understand. So
Yeah.
whatever it is that you want.
What was he asking you?
Oh fuck, I don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
I,
Depending on what it was, I might be able to figure out what it was he was doing, but that's okay.
I want to say he was talking about my past. It was like I know that Scientology at some point an audit. I think that he was auditing me.
I think he was probably doing some version of what they call life repair.
Maybe.
But you're right. They do call it auditing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now I'm dying to know what Steve's post is at the Las Vegas org. I mean, I'll tell you what, when all this is said and done and the dust is settled, if Bobbi ever wants to do a chat with me, it'd be really fascinating. Just to find about her path in and out of Scientology. Because for the Cardones to be allowed to drag Bobbi, well, I realize it's the state that's dragging her into court, but the Cardones made that possible. For the Cardones to be allowed to do that, I have to assume that Scientology has decided that Bobbi is no longer a Scientologist. And I sort of also assume or wonder whether Bobbi's ever been informed of that fact. And maybe this is something that's going on in her world that she just hasn't spoken to you about, but I'm fascinated to eventually find out everything that's going on the Scientology side of things.
Yeah, I mean, Scientology is not really a part of our life except for data. Like, and a lot of her data and knowledge is, I would assume, she's nonstop watching educational videos and reading, and so it's not all. I would imagine all Scientology data, but I don't know whatever data she's retained or she finds valuable, because some of the data is great. It's like NLP. NLP data and information is kind of reminds me of the same. I don't do NLP, but I'm familiar with it because I'm just a curious person at heart. So I always want to know what things are, but I feel like Scientology is somewhat on the data level is like NLP, and NLP it's all about communication. Yeah.
I haven't been exposed, well, at all to NLP to truly understand the relationship or the similarities, but I hear it mentioned a lot from sales, motivational guru type people. I hear them mentioning that when also talking about things like Scientology.
Yeah, a lot of motivational speakers 100% use NLP.
Did you?
It's how you're structuring words to. I know some people don't like this word, but it's how you structure words talking to an audience to mass manipulate them to get them to do what you want.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
It's a form of communication. It's like how do I okay. Some people would
Persuasion.
say persuasion.
Ah, yes. By the way, did you happen to see the podcast with Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I've never seen anything from Grant. I don't pay attention.
But you know who Jordan Belfort is, though?
Of course.
Oh, I'll send this to you afterwards. You're gonna fucking die. It's amazing.
All I know of that is like Jordan didn't like him or something like that.
Jordan makes him look like such a fool, and it was so bad that for weeks Jordan went from podcast to podcast to podcast, just shitting all over Grant. Like, this guy doesn't know the first thing about sales. What he knows is marketing. He's a marketing guy, and he's very, very good at marketing.
He's a very persuasive individual for sure.
Yes. I'm gonna have to look into that NLP stuff and the persuasion stuff just so I can truly appreciate the degree to which maybe L. Ron Hubbard incorporated that into Scientology. I wonder who created NLP and when it was created. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You know,
it's not. So NLP is language. From what I understand, it's language. Scientology is, church. So it's not, NLP is not like in a sense of Scientology because it's not a church. It's just like this program that you go through and for intellectual communication a lot of speakers and motivational speakers use it.
Well, sure. But I mean, Scientology is only a church in the sense of having tax exemption. If you don't believe in a God and you don't believe in a heaven or a hell or an afterlife per se, or a prophet, I mean, it's almost like, I mean, if Tony Robbins really wanted to, he could probably get his stuff categorized as a church as well. I mean, the truth is the data in Scientology, there's nothing churchy about it. So it might be much more closer to NLP than perhaps you might even realize, but
Possibly.
yeah. So, has your and Grant's Instagram war ceased, or are you guys still firing shots?
No, I mean, I'm kind of like, my last video was a mic drop.
Okay.
I don't want to say why. I just said interesting ... and I posted it.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out.
I don't. I mean, he made a comment to me yesterday on X, which used to be Twitter. I got tagged. I did a recent interview with my friend Beck, and he has a podcast, and he posted it yesterday, and he tagged me, and then I reposted it on my profile. And Grant, here comes Grant, like 73 views, one like, and he says he has 1 million followers, like, and I go, hey, I said, hey, senior citizen smooth brain, that's not my fucking YouTube channel or my podcast. Like, because he was trying to, because the back hits me up. He was like, why is this dude attacking me? I said, he's not. He thinks that's I posted that because he doesn't know any different. Like, why? No, there's no reason for him to attack you. And then he goes to another post of mine where I said something like, about as long as you believe you can achieve, and something about your saying out. I was like, say out loud. It was a post, and I said, say out loud that you're going to make a lot of. I don't remember verbatim, but about making a lot of money in crypto. As long as you believe you can achieve. And then he commented on that yesterday, and then he was like, I'm gonna make the world know. I'm gonna make the entire world know who you are. And I love this quote, by the way. So he has an agenda now. He's dragging me into something that I'm not. I'm literally on the articles. It says I'm not listed as a defendant. It's super important to me, right? Like I've worked very hard, of course I'm going to tell people, like, because people are like, oh, well, it's your wife. And I'm like, yeah, I understand, but so what? I need to, fortunately, the articles that came out says like that I'm not listed as a defendant and I'm not involved in the case. So I understand. We all understand like the allegations. I know, but I am also a person too. And thankfully that was known that I need he wants two ships to go down, not just one. Right. And
yeah,
so
that's interesting to me. It's not good enough for him that Bobby's being prosecuted for this. For some reason, he wants to drag you into it as well. And it's super, super weird.
Well, we both know, though, it's because he wants to sensationalize the story. And he wants everyone to believe that he is framing it, calling me a fraud, which is blatant slander. I'm not a lawyer, but saying all these things, posting old content of me, like sitting in my Rolls Royce in my pajamas at 8 a.m. because Instagram, or especially in 2019 or 2020, it was the era. It still is the era of fucking content. That was my type of content that I was posting at the time.
Yeah.
And framing it as we talked about at the beginning, like, framing it as if like Bobbi acquired all these luxury goods and that's his stuff. So, that's what he's trying to frame. Those are purses paid for by him, allegedly. The car, and basically just my lifestyle has been living off of his money, but which is fucking funny because, dude, everyone that knows me, and a lot of people do, like, I had success before I met Bobbi. I was living in a 10,000 square foot house, 2 acres in Vegas. And everybody, everybody knew the deal. Like, I was on the news all the time. They talk about, like, my status and, millionaire this and they don't just make those claims out of fucking thin air, right? And so I just had a different and high profile life at the time. I had a lot of parties at my house. I paid $250,000 to throw a massive 2,000 person party at Jake Paul's house in Calabasas. That was like huge for one of my businesses. And that was my life. And then I met Bobbi and had a kid, and that's not my life anymore. My content now is my family. because that's what matters most to me, and that's my life right now. I don't have a lot of content to post. Sitting the past year, I told you about building businesses. When you're in build mode, like it's like constant, nonstop grind, right? I'm building the legal cannabis brand right now, and you know, I gotta get all the labels, and I gotta get all the tedious work, and I'm very hands-on at the beginning because it makes me appreciate my business even more later. And so, yeah, man, it's I feel like I just had a brain fart again as to why I even brought that up, but
That's all right. Here, let me show everyone.
How often do I look at my finances? Every day, man. Every checking account, every savings account, every IRA, every Keo. If you got one checking account with $3,000 in it, look at how often do I look?
Seems a little weird. I mean, he's claiming he looks at every one of his accounts every day, but somehow he missed $2.3 million over a 3-year period. That's funny. I think it's interesting, even if just to show the fact that Cardone just kind of blows smoke and says whatever he thinks people are going to like to hear. Here he is saying, you got to look at every one of your accounts every single day. That's what I do. And then here he is being like, yeah, somehow he missed, you know, $2.3 million of credit card transactions over a 3-year period. And it's like something's fishy. Something isn't adding up here, you know?
yeah, and he wants everyone to believe that I know more than I'm saying. Here's the thing, and I'll say this to that. Now everybody that's watching knows, even if I wanted to pay 2.3 million, I can't. Even if I wanted to a year ago, when all this stuff went down, I can't. It's not Grant versus Bobbi. It's the state versus Bobbi, and it's even if I paid him, the DA won't go and say, "What do you want to do here?" It's not a negotiation. It's a criminal state DA thing. Like, so
Right.
so I can't, even if I wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what to say. I don't know what else to say to that.
Yeah. The reporting that I saw on this so far didn't include anything about what to expect next or when to expect it. Do you know, like, is there a court date? Is there already been, what do they call it? A pre-trial hearing or anything?
So the court date and that was the other thing too, because we saw like he was trying to frame it again. He's a very manipulative motherfucker. The first court date, I like actually had to take care of my son. It was actually one of the first times that she wouldn't be here in the morning, and like, because she's the one that takes him to therapy because it's how it has to be for him. That court date wasn't even like that. I shouldn't say not a big deal, but in a sense of like, she was just going to get booked and to hear her bond. And I was standing by here at the house with the debit card, ready to bond her out, talking to the bondsman, and we were just waiting. But they knew I had to, you know, they're like, dude, and even the lawyer was like, you don't need to come. This isn't that serious.
Mhm.
We're just gonna read. She's just getting read her charges. They're gonna say a couple of things to her. She's gonna do her processing, and then she's gonna, you know, you can bail her out. But her bail ended up 19 felonies, no bail, and then no ankle monitor.
So just on her own recognizance.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's just an arraignment.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't that important. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, he's like trying to frame it like you're not a real man, and what he's trying to do is just trying to fucking shift this story and manipulate his audience so everyone believes something that's actually not true. Because when you actually hear the details, you're like, oh, yeah, he did say that. And I was like, I wonder why he wasn't there. But then we saw what he said about him not being there, but now it makes even more sense because people in DMs are like, wasn't that an arraignment? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, they're like, people are not stupid. They're like, yeah, it wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, you didn't technically, it wasn't like this, she wasn't on trial, right? It's just like an arraignment, and then she'd go home. Like, we knew it was going to be bail and come home. And let me go take care of my son to make sure he gets a therapy, because the other thing, people are like, you should have hired a nanny. I'm like, these people clearly don't know anything about autism. You know, it's like, and it's my son, and I'm don't want to be I don't want to see the headlines where it says self-proclaimed good dad, but I fucking generally, like, I live for my children and whatever my son needs. And I was unsure of how the morning would even be without her, because that was the first time that's ever happened. And fortunately for my older son, that's 21, you know, he helped me, and he runs my warehouse, and all was good, and we got him to therapy, you know. So yeah. So on top of that, the next court date that they had was June 12th. And I don't I don't even know what that one's for. But this can go for quite some time. So I don't.
So that's going to be the pretrial hearing where the judge hears the basically there's two words for this thing. It's the pretrial hearing is one word. There's another phrase that they do where they basically just explain to the judge it's presenting to the judge the argument for the judge to argue there is enough circumstantial evidence here or evidence to move forward with the trial. That's where the judge decides we're going to throw it out, or he's giving a stamp of approval to move forward with the trial. That's what that is.
That's a good explanation. I think that's been told to me, but I was just like so like in my head about something, and I didn't remember the details.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Then they will schedule a trial date, and then there'll probably be some delays and postponements and all that.
Yeah, this is going to go on for quite a long time.
Okay, good. So where can people find you?
I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on social, but they can find me at Hustler on Instagram.
At Hustler? Okay, good. And what about X?
At Joe Vargas, but I'm not on that much.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, man. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Microphone was muted. Okay, good. There we go. That was it. Wanted to do this live stream style instead of just uploading it as a video. Okay, let's see. To wrap it up, anyone out there, please, who has information they can share with me to explain what the connections are, what the connection is between Tara, Randall, and the Cardones, please email me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Javier, the personal trainer, if you're out there, if you're still alive and you'd like to chat with me, you can reach me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com, or anyone else who knows Javier, has any information about Javier, always welcome. And anyone in the Cardone universe that has any additional light they might be able to shed and is willing to share with me about why is Grant Cardone targeting Joe Vargas when Joe is not suspected of doing anything wrong? He's not charged with doing anything wrong. Joe was never a friend of Grant's. Joe doesn't know Grant. Joe doesn't know Elena. It's all very, very strange. Okay, let me see. I think there was one question here just at the very end that I wanted to address. Matt Elliott, what is the time frame of when this allegedly happened? Like, from when did the supposed charges begin, and how long before they stopped prior to the raid? So, at the risk of getting it wrong, since the house was raided 1 year ago, I believe it was roughly a 3-year period prior to the house being raided. That's my understanding. My understanding could be incorrect, but that's what it is right now. Okay, guys, that is it. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you all soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right